Again, good afternoon, and thank you to the 19th Century Dress and Textiles Reframe Group for giving me this opportunity to talk about Henfield Museum in West Sussex. I've enjoyed following the group and delight in this opportunity to participate. Henfield is a typical village museum. The wood and glass cases are full of locally found artefacts. There are memories of a long ago railway, glimpses of the violet nurseries that used to be on the common, and walls that are hung with maps, paintings and photographs. I showed a recent fashion graduate around this summer, and she told me she didn't think that there were any museums like this left anymore, and I took that as a compliment. The costume collection isn't huge, but has a rich diversity and many gems. And so for today, here are some pieces from the 19th century element of the collection. On the slide in the top left-hand corner can be seen an early 1890s bodice and skirt in brown silk. It has covered buttons, which are faux, as it fastens simply with hooks and eyes. The collar and cuffs have a non-original trim of appliqued leaves. And there are two non-original bands of velvet braid with fringe on the skirt. However, the four swags of ruffles on the skirt are original. You can just see them coming down here. These darker bands are brown velvet with fringe and they look upholstery to me. Next, we have an apricot coloured taffeta evening bodice, circa 1869-70, with 3/4 length sleeves and rosettes on the cuffs, the shoulder and the waist. It's hand and machine made. The vestiges of the original tulle cuffs are simply overlaid by a new version, although the black and the white lace on the neckline and cuffs, I believe, are later additions. The waist stamp on the apricot bodice in this portion of the slide has the words Madame Thirza Hart, late of Madame States, 12 Princess Street, Hanover Square. That building is still there, and I have evidence of other makers working from there. And finally, here, a brown taffeta skirt, circa 1860s, I think. There are 4 black trim bands hand sewn onto the lower portion of the skirt, which are not original, but the black trim at the hem and the brush braid are original. There is a watch pocket and a side pocket. Other fine pieces that are not pictured on the slide in stock include 2 mantles labelled Hanningtons of Brighton, a grand department store that was in existence from 1808 to 2001. Other bodices we have 1860s, 1870s, 1890s, that in some cases bear the scars of theatrical alterations are in the collection, but the few well-preserved waist stamps make up for that in some part. Less grand is a circa 1892 ecru coloured bodice and skirt in a heavy cotton twill, complete with alders of Croydon sweat guards, which have been inserted in such a way that if one were to lift one's arm indelicately when out, you would be able to show everyone where you bought your sweat guards. For myself, I particularly like the garments that I can research, because research joy is a real thing. And as Henrietta has shown, researching and finding a backstory, especially if that story shows links with the village of Henfield, is a real joy. So to these exquisitely sewn combinations, this garment enables me to examine a fragment of a woman's life in the village of Henfield in the 20th and 19th centuries, and lets me know a little of what place a well-off unmarried woman might occupy in the society of the time. The combinations were sewn by Ada Tobit, who lived from 1873 to 1969. She made them in 1890. The museum records show 4 items described as Ada Tobit's unworn trousseau. They are these combinations: a pair of cotton split drawers with cuffs of lace, and 2 nightgowns. One of the nightgowns is in cotton lawn with a yoke-style lace collar, threaded with pink ribbon. The other nightgown, a fine cotton with lace trim and lace bodice inserts. All of them are beautifully made. She never married, hence unworn trousseau, but whether she was disappointed by a suitor or merely sewed for her bottom drawer, I don't know. Her elder sister was married in 1891 when Ada would have been 18. So did she sit and sew clothes of her own to keep her sister company while she made her bride clothes? Perhaps. As the unmarried daughter, Ada remained at home for the whole of her life, apart from having her education finished in France and Italy. Unlike her brothers, she never worked in the family shops. She looked after her father and cared for her brothers until their demise. Ada was on her own from 1957 onwards and became a recluse until her death at 96 in 1969. Her obituary in the parish magazine tells us she was a very stylish dresser. She was reported as completely changing her ensemble for evensong from the outfit worn that morning to matins. Very sadly, no photographs of her survive, or any that I can find anyway. And there we are, a few 19th century treasures which I have enjoyed sharing. Please contact me if you would like to arrange a visit to the costume collection to have a closer look. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. So maybe, I think we have a few minutes. Maybe we could open it up for a few more questions. And I want to point out too that Robin has posted in the chat addresses for submitting talk proposals. And also if you're working with a museum or a private collection, you can also send us a proposal for the 5-minute spot. So does anyone have any questions for Stephanie?
There's a couple in the chat. There's a general one from Veronica saying, first of all, how wonderful to hear how the museum has brought you so much research joy. Is it possible to book visits to carry out research with the collection? Do you like individuals or groups? How does it work, Stephanie?
Well, I welcome anyone who wishes to come and make use of the collection, which until I was asked to take it on, hadn't been looked at really for about 40 years. And it had all just slumbered away quite happily in the storeroom. I welcome groups, but due to the small size of the museum, and particularly under current conditions, 4 or at the most 5 people at a time are the most I can accommodate in the museum. But individuals are welcome if the individual has a specific interest, say in waste stamps, for instance. I'll happily get out anything we've got that they can handle and have a close look at them. My email address, ladyscribe@btinternet.com, is on the slide, and please get in touch with me like that. Or there is a Henfield Museum website, again the details on the bottom of the screen, and they can pass messages on to me, but for direct communication, ladyscribe is the best. I also post regularly on Facebook articles. I feature articles every week from the museum and post a few words. If anybody wants to catch up on that, they're still on the Facebook page. But yes, please come and see it. Having the stuff is wonderful, but showing it to people and getting it out of the box and making it come alive, that is the real joy for me.
Amazing. Well, I think you're going to get some inquiries now, Stephanie.
Thank you.
So would you say that 19th century holdings are strong in your collection? Is there a particular kind of focus, or? It's
no, I would have to say that there's a sprinkling, a strong sprinkling, but an awful lot of the collection, it was started by a woman in the 1930s who was far-sighted enough to realize that costume was worth preserving. And people, she got to be a local woman, and she got to be known, and people would give her items. So the vast majority of the collection has no provenance whatsoever. But because Henfield was essentially a market garden and nursery area, we have things like, there's a lot of Sussex smocks for male workers, there's farm bonnets, but there's also a few fairly good pieces that have either been donated by well-off people who retired to the Sussex countryside, or were given, as Henrietta was saying, families have items and they have no idea whether it's worth holding on to or would a museum like it. And so it's an eclectic collection, but there are some gems.
And for people who don't know the location, Stephanie, would you just sort of describe what Henfield is like?
It's we're about 8 miles. If you were going between Brighton, the south coast, and London, Henfield is about 8 miles up towards London from Brighton. It's in the middle of the countryside. There's a lot of farms still working around it, but there's a lot of houses being built here as well. Henfield Village has one very busy high street with all the usual shops you'd expect to find. And there are a lot of people who come to live in Henfield because it's a nice area to live in. And you can commute to London and Brighton from here very simply. But there are a lot of older farming families still here who are, in my experience, very generous with their recollections and memories. In fact, my current exhibition that's on in the museum at the moment is still celebrating the 75th anniversary of VE Day, because due to circumstances which I'm sure I don't need to enumerate, I haven't changed the case for over a year. And I got various contemporaneous accounts and photographs from local established farming families about the land girl participation. So that sort of thing is an immensely useful resource.
Fascinating. All these research joys waiting to be uncovered and shared.
Yes, yes.
So do we want to have any general questions? I mean, I'm sure people have been thinking about all the papers and how they relate, or if they relate, and maybe we can just open it up for a few minutes. I think we have a few minutes, don't we?
I think we've got sort of 3 to 5 minutes if anyone's got any general questions, and I think I'm just stunned by the amazing
Well, there's a bit more going on in the chat.
Yeah.
So Azadeh says, sounds like Henfield is a place I'd love to visit on my next imaginary trip from London to Brighton. 2 of my favourite places on a pilgrimage to fashion collections.
Come, Azadeh, come.
Come.
The universe is telling you, it's calling you. So Jennifer says there is a lovely 18th century waistcoat on the Henfield website that might help Henrietta to date the strut stuff. Oh, sorry, the strut waistcoat. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, that's that is, as soon as I saw Henrietta's photographs, I thought, oh, that looks familiar. So perhaps you might like to look at the website, Henrietta. There's a feature on that waistcoat and others that we have in the collection on there.